Hello and welcome to Days of Roar, a Detroit Tigers podcast brought to you by the Detroit Free Press. I'm your host, Tigers beat writer Evan Petzold. As always, I'm joined by Chris Brown from Tigers Minor League Report. A lot is going on this week. Framber Valdez made his first spring training start Monday, going 3 scoreless innings with 3 strikeouts in the second inning. The World Baseball Classic gets underway Thursday, and Justin Verlander makes his first spring training start for the Tigers on Friday. So there's a lot to look forward to, but when we look back on the past week, we have to start with the injury news, and that's to right-hander Troy Melton. Troy Melton ticketed for a rotation spot in AAA Toledo or a bullpen spot with the Tigers, but probably a rotation spot in Toledo. He has been shut down from throwing due to right elbow inflammation, so he won't be ready for the start of the season. He reported general arm soreness, and then he was diagnosed with inflammation in his right elbow after visiting a doctor, and that doctor suggested 1 to 2 weeks without throwing. So he remains sidelined. He had been active in spring training with bullpens and live batting practices, but as far as we know, he has not pitched since February 20th. And he's dealt with something similar, I guess, 5 years ago when he was pitching in college at San Diego State, but he didn't need surgery. So now he's dealing with this same situation again 5 years later, only this time he's coming off a career high in innings with more than 120 innings last season. He now throws in the upper 90s. He throws a lot of sliders. It's certainly concerning, and how can you not think about the worst case scenario when you consider all the information that we just presented? My mind goes straight to Tommy John surgery. Obviously, we all hope that's not the case. Hopefully, Troy Melton, he rests for 1 to 2 weeks, resumes his throwing program, and never has another issue with his arm, but this is baseball. So if I'm the Tigers, I know it's early in this process, I wouldn't be counting on anything from Troy Melton this season, at least not until he's back on the mound without any issues. Because when you hear elbow and you hear inflammation, it's always a reason to be concerned. So Chris Brown, welcome to the show. Starting on a somber note, what are your thoughts on Troy Melton?
Yeah, I know it's a huge bummer, but at the same time, I don't know, you just got to hold your breath, right? For these things. It's one thing, big arm injuries are obvious. And so it's not one of those, right? It doesn't mean it can't be a big arm injury. Sometimes they start small and become big. And sometimes they're just small. And you want to be very careful with elbows and shoulders as much as you can with pitchers, because those are the things that go wrong. 1 to 2 weeks of rest, that doesn't sound too bad. What you hope is sometimes what you'll see is when the inflammation goes down, then they notice something. So you hope there's nothing else going on in there. But yeah, just give them the rest. That part of the benefit of adding some more, starting pitching depth is you don't have to rely on Troy Melton. And but he's obviously a very talented arm, and they want him healthy in the organization this year. So like I said, hold your breath, and cross your fingers, and whatever else you have to do to make things right there.
Yeah, we're all still in wait and see mode, but if he does miss significant time, it's a huge loss. Yes, he may have been headed to AAA in that rotation, but you could also make the argument that he's one of the best 13 pitchers in the Tigers organization. And if that's what you believe, then he deserves a spot on the opening day roster, even as a reliever, because this big league rotation is already set. But if he's one of the best 13 pitchers in the org, then put him on the opening day roster and stick him in the bullpen and let him rock. But even if he had gone to AAA, and if that is the path that he ultimately goes, let's say he heals up and he's all good, I mean, this guy's going to be the number 1 starter in the rotation with the Mud Hens. And by the time we get into the regular season, he would have been next man up for the Tigers. Like Justin Verlander or Casey Mize or Jack Flaherty or, dare I say, Tarek Skubal or Framber Valdez. If one of those guys were to get hurt during the season, especially once Drew Anderson officially limits his volume and goes into that full-time bullpen role, then Troy Melton would be the next man up. But now I don't think the Tigers can count on that, at least not until they know more information. And without Melton, I think you're looking at Cater Montero or Ty Madden as the next man up for rotation options. Maybe the Tigers will put Cater Montero in the bullpen, and if that happens, then it's Ty Madden or maybe Emmanuel DeJesus as the next man up in the rotation. And that just feels a lot different than having Troy Melton waiting in the wings, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Melton's a very talented guy, and there was a time where he might have been a mid-rotation starter in this rotation. So yeah, it's a potentially tough loss, but again, we'll wait and see what happens. For now, you just kind of hope for the best.
Spring training well underway. We have 6 roster cuts already. Now, we still have more than 20 days until opening day, but the Tigers, they've already made 6 roster moves in 2 rounds of spring training cuts. In round 1, the Tigers reassigned Phil Bickford, Dugan Darnell, Tyler Owens, and Troy Watson to minor league camp. All of them are injured right-handed relievers on minor league contracts, so that's why they were sent out. And then in round 2, the Tigers optioned right-hander Ty Madden and right-handed reliever Dylan Smith to AAA Toledo, with Madden set to join the Mud Hens rotation and Smith set to join the Mud Hens bullpen. I don't even think we have to talk about the first round of cuts unless you have something to say about Bickford, Darnell, Owens, or Watson. But how about the second round of cuts? Ty Madden and Dylan Smith. That leaves the Tigers with 59 players remaining in MLB camp. Only 26 make the opening day roster. I'm pretty interested in what Ty Madden can be. Like, for those who don't remember, this was the number 32 overall pick in the 2021 draft. Made his MLB debut in 2024, missed all of 2025 with a shoulder injury that didn't require surgery, and now he's back. And in his lone spring training start against the Phillies, he was sitting like 93, 94. His cutter generated 5 whiffs on 6 swings, and he has a 6-pitch starter mix. So he's somebody who's going to be able to pitch in the rotation, and there's a lot to work with here. I can't wait to see what Doug Bachler, the AAA pitching coach, is able to do with Ty Madden. It's funny because when guys come up to the big leagues during the season, you always hear about how Bach helps them unlock something. And I bet we're going to hear the same thing from Ty Madden at some point in 2026. I think he's going to help the Tigers in some capacity, and he moves up on the depth chart if Troy Melton's injury is significant.
Yeah, I was mildly surprised that those two were sent out just because I do feel like there are still a couple spots in the bullpen up for grabs. But as you said, it seems like they're going to continue grooming Ty Madden as a starter, or at least as a bulk innings guy. And his best way to do that right now is in minor league camp. That's fine. And yeah, he did. He looked good in that outing. He is a real kitchen sink pitcher. Like, he was drafted as this big arm guy, basically was fastball slider, barely threw his changeup. And in pro ball, he's added a cutter and a knuckle curve and, a sinker. He's got 6 pitches, like you said. I don't know if any of them are really above average. That cutter certainly looked like it the other day. But you can eat innings like that if you keep people off balance with that many pitches. And it's just nice to have a little bit more depth of starting pitchers, as we've talked about. You're already down Reese Olson. You might be down Troy Melton. Troy Watson was another guy who might be a starter. He's injured. Sawyer Gibson-Long is still working his way back. It's a lot of nicks and scratches right now. So keep Madden healthy and see what you have with him.
Let's get into the big two. It's a lot of prospect talk. Question 1 of the big two. What is the latest with top prospect Kevin McGonigle and the Tigers' opening day roster? And if Kevin McGonigle makes the opening day roster, who from the position player group gets cut? I want to start with you because we have had this conversation over the last 3 weeks. It's been my Chris Brown meter. It's, hey, Chris, how do you feel about Kevin McGonigle's chances to make the opening day roster? And you know where I was at coming into spring training. Coming into camp, I was saying, I don't think Kevin McGonigle is going to get called up until August 2026. And that's when I think we're going to see Kevin McGonigle is in mid-August. That's what I was saying coming into camp. And then after about a week, I was like, ooh, Kevin McGonigle, he looks pretty good. And I think he can make a real case for the opening day roster. And now as I sit here today, I think, man, Kevin McGonigle might be penciled in to the opening day roster already. And I know we still have a ways to go, but maybe. Where are you at on this? Because you have been anti-Kevin McGonigle on the opening day roster, not because you feel that way, but because you feel like that's what the Tigers are going to do. As this has evolved, where's the Chris Brown meter at when it comes to Kevin McGonigle?
Yeah. So, I just did, we did our roster projections 2.0 for the entire organization, and I had McGonigle in Detroit. I had him with the Tigers. And, we watched spring training, and you can't put too much in spring training, but at the same time, you see things. You see things you can't ignore. And we all know the bat. You've seen him hit a couple years now. It's a special bat. He's going to struggle a little bit in the big leagues, right? These are the best of the best, and they're going to find his weaknesses and exploit them. And he's going to adjust, and he'll be fine eventually. But I kept wondering, if they would really bring him up, because he would have to be your everyday shortstop at this point. I don't think they're going to boot Colt Keith to AAA. And with Trey Sweeney's injury that opened like a small crack, he might not have made the team, but he was another shortstop. And yeah, now at the point, it's like, all right, well, who's the best shortstop on the roster? It's Baez is probably the best defender, but we saw McGonigle finally get some chances to make some defensive plays the other day. And he made 3 really nice plays, really big league shortstop plays. He didn't do anything crazy. He wasn't sliding into shallow left field and popping up and throwing a guy out from 200 feet away. But he made some really nice plays on the run, adjusted well, and he looked like a big league shortstop. And that's what I think they wanted to see. And so I think they're going to keep putting him in these situations. That was a game where it was basically like the opening day lineup, except I think Rogers was catching and Dingler was DH because it hasn't been quite cleared to throw to second yet. And they had McGonigle at batting 8th. was like, okay, this is probably what it's going to be like on opening day. We're not going to bet you third, even though he might already be a top 3 hitter on the team, but we don't need to get out of ourselves. But yeah, so I think I have him on the opening day roster now. We'll see what happens in a couple weeks, but that's where I stand on that.
Yeah, I want to go back through everything that Kevin McGonigle has done in his first MLB spring training. So bear with me, because a lot of our listeners, yes, they're able to watch what's on TV, and yes, they're able to see a highlight or a clip when the Tigers post it. But I think we need to really remember what's all transpired over the last 3 weeks or so. I mean, he arrived early to spring training with Max Clark, and we're going to talk about Max Clark in a few minutes for an entirely different reason. But he arrives early to camp, so that already is like a gold star. AJ Hinch loves that, guys showing up early to get their work in. And then on the first day of full squad workouts, the Tigers put Kevin McGonigle in an infield group with Javier Baez, Colt Keith, Gleyber Torres, and Spencer Torkelson. That is his first introduction to big league spring training. On the second day, AJ Hinch could have asked anybody to stand up, but instead he asked Kevin McGonigle to stand up in front of the entire team and introduce himself. And then some of the veteran guys come up to him and say, hey, you did a really good job. You handled that really well. That was part of the pregame meeting. And AJ Hinch wanted Kevin McGonigle to stand up and introduce himself to the guys he's going to be playing with in 2026, whether it's opening day or whether it's mid-August. And Kevin McGonigle crushed it. And then in his first spring training game, McGonigle, he prepared to face Yankees prospect Carlos Lagrange by studying video of their previous matchup. And then he made a pitch-to-pitch adjustment to the timing of his swing, and he hits a 100-mile-an-hour fastball for a single. And then he plays a few more spring training games. And then in his fifth spring training game, he goes 2 for 2 with 1 walk in 3 plate appearances against some no-name pitchers from the Phillies. The next day, his 6th spring training game, he travels to Port Charlotte to face Rays starter Nick Martinez, who just signed a 1-year, $13 million contract. He's an 8-year MLB veteran, plus he had 4 seasons in Japan. And what did McGonigle do? He ripped a triple in the first inning, he blooped a double in the third inning, and then in the 5th inning, he worked a 7-pitch walk against Rays left-handed reliever Ian Seymour, who had a 3.63 ERA over 57 innings in the big leagues last season. And then after that walk, he hustled as he went from first to third on the bases when Matt Vierling, who's looked great so far this spring, by the way, hit a ground ball single into left field. And that first to third situation, that really impressed the Tigers coaching staff. Those guys care a lot about base running. Kevin McGonigle checked the box there. You've got the presence in the clubhouse. You've got the offense, you've got the base running, and then in his 7th spring training game, you alluded to it, it felt like the Tigers' opening day lineup, or at least as close to it as you could possibly get. Yes, Dylan Dingler, he's limited to DH only right now, and he should be back to catching within the next week, by the way, so that's a good sign for Dylan Dingler. But that lineup, listed in batting order, Kerry Carpenter in right field, Gleyber Torres at second base, Riley Greene in left field, Spencer Torkelson at first base, Dylan Dingler at designated hitter, Colt Keith at third base, Javier Baez in center field, Kevin McGonigle at shortstop, and Jake Rogers at catcher, with none other than Tarek Skubal as the starting pitcher. And then coming out of the bullpen in order, Kenley Jansen, Kyle Finnegan, Will Vest. And what did Kevin McGonigle do surrounded by those players? I think he answered the biggest question about his game. He proved that he is ready to play shortstop in the big leagues. It was several highlight reel defensive plays behind Skubal, a double play in both the first and second innings. It was an unassisted double play in the first inning, and then a double play with Gleyber Torres in the second inning. And on both of those double plays, you could just tell like the internal clock was perfectly timed up. Like he was right where he needed to be in the right moments, and he was able to execute the play. And then I thought his best play was in the third inning when he positioned his body to attack a soft grounder. He got at it with his forehand, gathered it on the run, transferred from glove to hand, and then unleashed this like cross-body throw to get Dalton Varsho by a half step at first base. Like those are plays that you just have to make if you want to play shortstop in the big leagues. And Kevin McGonigle made him look easy. Tarek Skubal called him, quote, a complete baseball player, end quote, signifying that not only can he hit, but this guy can play defense as well. So for all of those on-field things, Kevin McGonigle, he looks the part, and that's not even accounting for behind the scenes. When he talks to reporters, whether it's pregame or postgame, he sounds like he's been in the big leagues for a decade. Like he is comfortable, and coming into camp, the Tigers just wanted McGonigle to feel comfortable around this team, and he looks more than comfortable. He looks ready to join them on the opening day roster. And so if this is where we're really at right now, who loses a roster spot? Like what happens here if Kevin McGonigle actually forces his way onto this team, because you can only carry 13 position players. And coming into camp, it seemed like the position player group was pretty set in stone. But if Kevin McGonigle makes his way in, someone's going to lose a job.
Yeah, I was thinking, he made all those defensive plays. He went 0 for 2 at the plate. One of them was a strikeout looking against the starter that nobody did anything against. And then, it was a ground out, but it was a 104-mile-an-hour ground out. So, yeah, I mean, even his outs are loud.
He's hitting the ball so hard. It's 100-mile-an-hour exit velocities plus. I mean, even the one game against the Phillies where he had the 2 hits, I know they were just no-name pitchers that he was facing, but he had 2 hits in the same inning, both of them over 107 miles an hour exit velocity, and you had a great nugget on that.
Yeah, that the Tigers hitters only did that 6 times all of last year, which is to say that hit 2 hits in the same game of at least 107 plus miles an hour.
And he did it in the same inning.
Yes, in the spring training game, like one of his first chances. So yeah. We're getting effusive here, but yeah, I think you do raise a good point there is you got to make room for him in a couple of different ways. And right now I think there are 3 potential candidates that would get bumped off. And I'm kind of leading it down to just 2 now. I mean, I started thinking about Matt Vierling, Winslow Perez, and Parker Meadows. And as you said, Matt Vierling has looked good so far this spring. And he's also like a leader. Like all 3 of these guys are important. It's going to be tough to send any of them down. But Vierling's got that leadership quality to him that I think that they want to keep around. So then it comes down to Perez and Meadows. And right now, I guess I would lean Perez, but I don't think Meadows is completely out of the woods here. And I don't want to make too much of spring, right? We do this every year. Not necessarily the thing you do, but fans and people who watch the games, you watch like, oh man, he looks rough. But it's, he's 1 for 17 so far this spring, and the contact is not impressive. His average exit velocity is under 83 miles an hour this year. But like I said, we do this all the time, and I do want to flash back 2 years ago because Kevin McGonigle looks amazing right now. But do you remember who looked amazing two spring trainings ago?
Give it to me.
It was Parker Meadows. He led the team with hitting .358 with 4 homers, 3 doubles, a triple. Was playing awesome defense in center field. I think we just got to let these next couple of weeks play out. But I'm leaning Perez right now, but it wouldn't shock me if Meadows goes. And then there's the other aspect of it where you have to clear a spot on the 40-man roster, which I think the Tigers generally like to do that by putting somebody on the 60 IL. Who that will be right now, I don't know. But yeah, it's a tough decision, but that's what happens when you're a good team.
I talked last week about the 6 outfielder situation, and I pinpointed Matt Vierling and Jahmai Jones as 2 guys who could lose their roster spot. And I think Winslow Perez is safe. AJ Hinch loves the switch hit component, the ability to play all 3 outfield positions. Like when you have a switch hitter on your bench, you can really do a lot of different things as you're trying to match up against relievers who are coming into the game, late in game situations. I think Winslow Perez is going to be a key piece of the Tigers. I feel like he's safe right now until something happens where he's not. I think Winslow Perez is going to be on the team. And then, Matt Vierling is playing great. And Jahmai Jones, like the way that I think about Jahmai Jones is, man, there's a nasty left-handed reliever coming out of the bullpen. Who do you want getting that at bat? Like it's Jahmai Jones, like based on what you've seen. And sure, maybe he's not going to be able to repeat the success that he had last season and do it all over again. But if it's opening day and there's a nasty left-handed reliever out there, I want Jahmai Jones taking that at bat over pretty much anybody else. So with Winslow Perez and the switch hit component, Matt Vierling looking as good as he is, Jahmai Jones being out of options and being their really only true like lefty slayer that they have. If Kevin McGonigle makes a team, he's going to be the everyday shortstop. And so if that happens, like where is Javi Baez going to play? Where is Zach McKinstry going to play? Especially if you have Cole Keith at third base, Gleyber Torres at second base, Spencer Torkelson at first base. Like I think if Kevin McGonigle makes the opening day roster, Javier Baez could end up as the primary center fielder. And that's exactly what happened in Sunday's lineup in spring training against the Blue Jays. And that would push Parker Meadows to AAA Toledo. That's where I'm at right now. I think Parker Meadows would be the one who would get sent out. That's where I'm at this point in time. Now, a lot can change. It's still early. But man, Parker Meadows, like if you think back, he hit .215 in 58 games during the 2025 season. I know it was injury plagued, but he played 58 games and he hit .215. And he was also worth -1 defensive run saved in center field. And now it's 2026 spring training and he's 1 for 17 at the plate in 6 games. I'm not saying he's doomed, but for Parker Meadows, it is time to start hitting if he wants to keep his job. Question 2 of the big 2. Let's talk about the Max Clark situation. What happened with Max Clark? What did Max Clark say? What did manager AJ Hinch say? And what do we think at Days of Roar about the criticism over the chains? Now, before we play the audio from Max Clark and AJ Hinch, I want to set the table with what happened. This went down last Tuesday. The Tigers were playing against the Braves in Northport. You had Emmanuel DeJesus on the mound in the first inning. You had Max Clark, who normally plays center field, starting in left field because Parker Meadows was playing center field. So it's Tigers versus Braves and Manuel DeJesus on the mound and Max Clark in left field. And out in left field, Max Clark is wearing 4 diamond chains. And we know he's flashy with the tattoos, the hair, the tight pants, the colorful shoes, and of course the jewelry. And those diamonds were shining in the sun. So it was a point to where like they were shining so much so that was all the Braves broadcasters could talk about, specifically former MLB pitcher and Braves broadcaster CJ Nitkowski, who said, quote, "Back in my day, a guy who isn't going to be on the opening day roster would never do that," end quote. That was just one of many comments from the Braves broadcast made about Max Clark's diamond chains. And then just as they were talking about his bling, he dropped 2 fly balls in left field. Yes, it was sunny, but those were plays that need to be made, and they should have been made. The first one was an easy pop-up in shallow left field, and the second one was a long fly ball at the warning track in left field. So that's what happened to Max Clark, the 21-year-old prospect. The Tigers selected him number 3 overall in the 2023 draft. He signed for a $7.7 million bonus. And then after the drop fly balls, you have the criticism on social media, specifically criticism from Jeff Fry, a former MLB player who spent parts of 8 seasons with 4 teams. He played 667 games in the big leagues. Here's what former MLB player Jeff Fry posted on social media, which went viral. Quote, "Let the kids play, right? Poor Emmanuel DeJesus hasn't pitched in MLB since 2023, but no one cares because the top prospect with aura couldn't catch a couple of routine fly balls. This is what happens when organizations hype up prospects who haven't done anything at the MLB level, yet who are more concerned with building their brand than actually playing the game. This is also a direct result of MLB teams not having veterans who used to teach the young knuckleheads how to look and act like a big leaguer. Let's hear it from all you keyboard warriors who think this is not a problem in 3, 2, 1, end quote." So that was former MLB player Jeff Fry, and he made that post with all of the Max Clark clips from the Braves game, and it was more than just the drop fly balls. Yes, there were the drop fly balls, but he also slipped in left field on a throw into the infield. He seemingly forgot the count on a walk, and then he fell over at the plate on a swing and miss induced by former Tiger Joey Wentz. So, of course, the video and Jeff Fry's comments, they went viral on social media. So to set the table, that is the Max Clark situation. Now, Chris, before I get into the audio, both from Max Clark and AJ Hinch, how are you reacting to all of this as it was happening in real time? Both the bad plays from Clark, because they were bad plays, and then also the commentary from people like CJ Nitkowski and Jeff Fry.
Jeff Fry is one of my least favorite people on the internet. I don't know if I really want to go off a rant here, but I suppose I can. You know, nothing sells these days or gets engagement quite like outrage. And he's just expert at stirring up outrage. And it's all one particular kind. It's all about how baseball's bad these days and how it was better when he played and how players, the pitchers don't have good command now. And all they do is, they're not throwing as hard as they say they are because the radar guns are changed and the hitters have everything wrong. They're swinging for the fences too much. They need to be, and this is coming, he was a slap hitting nobody really. I mean, he could have been an awesome story, right? He was a 30th round pick who made it to the big leagues, had a solid big league career. That's an awesome story. But all he does is complain constantly about how the game is bad now. And mind you, this is a guy who came up with the early 90s Texas Rangers teams who had Jose Canseco and Juan Gonzalez and Rafael Palmeiro and Ivan Rodriguez, all heavily implicated in steroids. And then he had Bobby Witt Sr. pitching on his team. Bobby Witt Sr., one of the wildest pitchers in the last 40 years. Go back and look at his first 6 years, his stats. He's walking 140 people a year. And he talks about how guys don't do it right these days. So it's super annoying to me. It's hypocritical. And it bothers me because there's so much more to Max Clark than the chains and him making a couple misplays. And Max Clark knows he's a baseball player. He knows he's supposed to catch the ball. It's sunny. It happens. But I don't know. It's annoying to me because one of the lessons we all learned, theoretically, or at least I hope so, if we were raised right, is that you don't judge people by the way they look. And if you go beyond that, and don't worry about the fashion choices that Max Clark is making, you learn that he's exactly the kind of player that you want. He busts on the line every time. He works his tail off. He's terrific with young fans. He's incredibly charismatic, and he absolutely loves baseball. But you don't take the time to learn that because look at the chains and he dropped some balls, and now I can make my point online. And like you said, he wasn't hot dogging, right? He wasn't Willie Mays Hayes trying to make a basket catch. He lost the balls in the sun. It happens in baseball. He needs to make those catches. He needs to be better. And like, I just in personal experience here, I got into trouble. Max Clark has huge fan base, right? I got into trouble last year because I criticized him as a player. Some of the things as a player that I didn't think were quite up to par last year. I felt like he was making too much soft contact to the opposite field. And I said at one point last year, I even said that I didn't think he looked like a top 100 prospect. But also over the last 2 years, I've seen him steadily improve each season. And by the end of the year, he looks like a legitimate all-star player down the road, pulling the ball in the air, hitting it to the gaps, getting extra base hits, playing solid defense. Like, I don't know if he's ever going to be like a Gold Glove level defender in the outfield, but he's good enough. And the last thing I'll say about this is Rogelio and I actually talked to him about that afterward. He knew that I criticized him and he did not take it personally. He knew that I was just saying what I had seen. And he explained to me what he was going through. He had injuries throughout the year that I didn't know about that were keeping him from running more and things like that. And he's just an incredibly mature kid with a lot of perspective. And again, he's exactly the sort of player, the sort of blue collar grinder that everybody wants to root for, but they can't see it because there's some chains around his neck. And it's frustrating to me. Rant over. Sorry about that.
Everybody, that was Chris Brown on Jeff Fry, and I loved every second of it. Now here's Max Clark on the Max Clark situation.
I don't figure out how to put this like politically correctly. Like, I don't care what they have to say, to be completely honest with you. People don't know me. There's a lot of people out there that'll do anything for some monetary clicks. I've been dealing with this since I was 15. It's a part of this game. It's a part of this process. And it's only going to get worse, obviously. And, you know, like, people love to talk about things that they don't have a clue about. They don't know how I was raised. My mom was a special ed teacher. My dad drove semis. Grew up in a 2-story house, loving God and serving him. Yeah. And just for people to go out there and say stuff like that, like, I'm sleeping just fine at night. I can promise you that. And one day they're going to have to look in the mirror and answer that question themselves. I get to wake up each and every day and play a child's game for money, surrounded by 3 probable Hall of Famers, 6 All-Stars, 15 Gold Gloves, and a manager who's won 2 World Series, I think, who also played. And they support me. They love me. And we work each and every day for that. Sure. And that's the big picture, right? You know, I don't care if people criticize me for dropping 2 fly balls. Like, no kidding. I should have caught the fly ball. It doesn't matter if the sun was there. It doesn't matter if it was my first time playing left field. It doesn't matter. I should have caught the ball.
But they made it personal.
100%. And that's not, like, it had nothing to do with the fly ball, right? They're just looking for an image to pay. That's part of it. Like, but like I said, you know, people talk about humility and humbleness. Like, that's not even a question. Each and every one of these guys know what I'm going to go out and do for them each and every day. And like the Jesus, like, I got him 2 bottles of the best rum you can find because I felt like for messing up his incredible start. And then he had another 3-4 innings today. Yeah. So, like, I'm aware of it. And that's things that people don't realize. That's things that people don't understand. And they're not inside this clubhouse. And there's a reason for that. Even the ex-big leaguers of the orgs, like, you know, the Jeff Fries, like, there's a reason that he's doing what he's doing, and there's a reason that we're doing what we're doing. There's a reason that we're all still in baseball. There's a reason that AJ's still in baseball. And it's because they carry, you know, heavy responsibility to make us mature men, which we are. And it's a strong clubhouse. So, you know, Parker and I were messing around yesterday. I think you snapped a picture of it. Like, that should tell a story in itself. And he's the man. Like, everybody had my back. Everybody's lost a sunball. And I read something from Austin Jackson the other day on it. It was like, as long as he's out there trying to figure out how to catch in the sun, then that's all that matters. And that's right. Like, the same day I texted George, I wanted extra work in left field. I wanted extra work to figure it out. Like, those things come, you learn them, and they just come with the territory. So, obviously, you know, I'm going to get more flack just because of the way I dress, but at the end of the day, I know I'm a baller, I know I'm a gamer. So, and that's what everybody else here knows. That's why I was drafted where I was.
And here's AJ Hinch on the Max Clark situation.
About Max in specific, he's incredible to be around every day, and I love his enthusiasm. I love the way he approaches the game. I love the work that he puts in, and I love that he has the confidence to be himself. That's a staple of what's expected when you come into our clubhouse and under any team that I'm on. Every era is different, and I think this is the era that we're in where whether it's social media or self-expression or fan opinion is more public than ever. And I think obviously there comes a time when things need to be addressed. We're not there because Max done nothing wrong. Max is being himself, and Max is fitting in perfectly on a really good big league team in his first major league spring training. Our guys love him, and I think people are incredibly unfair when they can, criticize with no merit.
Chris, what do you think about the way both Max Clark and AJ Hinch responded? And aside from this situation, do you care at all that Max Clark is 2 for 15 with 1 walk and 5 strikeouts in 7 spring training games?
Well, yeah, first of all, I really appreciate the way both of those guys talk about that. And we know, like, AJ Hinch has command of his clubhouse. We've seen him. I mean, he benched Javi Baez a couple of years ago after, he didn't run out of the ball, or I don't remember exactly what happened, but he took Javi back in the hallway or whatever and benched him. And he would do that if there was a real issue with Max Clark. And there isn't. Like, he made a point of that. Like, he made a couple mistakes on the field. That's going to happen to guys. He needs to be better. That'll happen. And I just would point out the one thing that I've always found interesting. I've interacted with Max twice. I've talked to him twice. And he is just a huge, huge baseball fan. And you can sit there and talk to him about baseball, not about himself. And the part of the quote that I loved is he's talking about the guys with the Cy Youngs and the All-Star appearances and the Gold Gloves. He knows all that stuff because he's a huge fan. And that's the kind of teammate he is. So I like that he brought that up. And I think he acquitted himself pretty well there. I am not super concerned about his performance so far. As I mentioned before, the last 2 seasons, he's gotten off to slow starts. It might just be kind of who he is. Like, it might take him a while to get his swing. And I didn't think he had a real chance of making the opening day roster anyway, right? Like, he's not Kevin McGonigle. They've been tied together so far, but, McGonigle is just more advanced as a hitter. It doesn't mean that Clark can't get there one day, but I'm just happy to see him out there playing for the most part. So I don't have any real issues with the way he's playing so far.
Me either on that. I think Max Clark is going back to Double-A Erie, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. All right, we're going to take a break, but when we come back, we are joined by a fan favorite. His name is Andy Dirks. Everyone, I'd like to welcome Andy Dirks, former Detroit Tigers player, current Detroit Tigers broadcaster, to the Days of Roar podcast. He's been here before, and we are lucky to have him again, especially now that we are into our second full week of spring training games ahead of the 2026 season. Andy Dirks, thank you for joining us.
Evan, Chris, always a pleasure. Excited to be back on the podcast. I'm no longer a rookie. I'm about to become a seasoned vet.
This is your 3rd time, so yeah, we'll call that a seasoned vet. We're going to talk a lot about the Tigers, from the offseason moves to what we're seeing in spring training, but we want to start with some broadcasting talk because, Andy Dirks, you do an incredible job in the broadcast booth. How fired up are you about the launch of Detroit SportsNet, which is the new broadcasting home for the Tigers and Red Wings? And can you give us a little sneak peek into what you and play-by-play voice Jason Benetti have in store for Tigers fans in the 2026 season?
Yeah, we've, this offseason, obviously for us baseball guys, it was a little bit of things up in the air. Where are we going to be? Who's going to be in charge of what? What's going to happen with it? And we've kind of settled in now. We got to talk to some of the executive producers, some of the execs on the MLB side, all really good. They have similar vision to what we have as a unit. Our broadcast team is very tight knit. We're big on our culture. We have a lot of fun doing the broadcast, very knowledgeable, and we want to continue to accelerate the broadcast in a direction that the fans love. Like, the goal is for the viewers to have an engaging, exciting time watching the team that they love and a team that's going to be very good this year play baseball. So we have a lot of good momentum coming in from last year, but we want to continue to get better on our end to cover a team that's got potential to exceed what they did last year, which would at least put them in an American League Championship type of position, if not World Series, Evan. And why not win the stinking thing, right?
Yeah, we got a lot of questions about the 2026 team coming up, but we are kind of curious about just your journey to where you are now. Where, when did you first get the idea to try broadcasting? You were, after your playing days, it was like right into real estate, wasn't it? And then suddenly you're back with the Tigers as a broadcaster. How'd that happen?
Basically, I was selling real estate. So after I got done with baseball, I had 2 back surgeries. It forced me out of the game. So I had a little bit of a weird ending with my baseball career, which leads to a little bit of bitterness, a little bit of like awkwardness, I'll say. because I was only like 28 years old. So that's kind of the prime for most guys. And, you see your buddies still playing. You see other guys who you're like, dude, I'm better than that guy. And then you see him sign like a deal, like a 3-year, $20 million deal. You're like, oh my. So there was a point in my journey where I didn't even really watch much baseball. I was kind of like in a weird place of I had to get over the hump of losing a close family member. Because there's a difference between being in the clubhouse and being on the team and then covering baseball, right? There's the guys, like the everyday grind of it, the competitive attitude. So I had some time where, I didn't engage much in baseball. Some people had mentioned coaching, but I had a young family and I'm like, I really didn't want to do the travel schedule while the family was young. And I didn't have a passion for it at that time. So I got into real estate and then I was actually flipping burgers one afternoon. It was like an early lunch type of thing. I think it was 2019, I believe, like at 3:00 in the afternoon. And somebody called me and they, everybody knew I was still in town. Everybody from the Tigers. They're like, hey, would you be interested in potentially doing like a quick game color analyst on the radio? I was like, shoot, yeah, let's go for it. Like, when do you want to do it? They're like, tonight. And that's kind of because, Jim Price had started having some health issues. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Let's knock it out. Let's have some fun. I've done a ton of public speaking. Like even before broadcasting, I'm like marketing, public speaking, like all of these things are not foreign to me. As you know, I'm not the shyest of folks. Went in, did a game with Dan, had a blast doing it. And then slowly over the course of the next couple of years, I'd fill in on radio a little bit, but still never really thought, like this is going to be an end all be all career. It's fun. It's exciting. And it was good to get back in the game of baseball. That's probably the most exciting part of it for me in a capacity where I can spread some knowledge base. And then in like 3 years ago, Jim started having more health issues and then my workload on the radio ramped up and then kept doing radio with Dan. And then one thing led to another. They're like, hey, do you want to try TV? I'm like, sure, let's rock and roll. Let's do it. So I never had like a formal education. And I think most color guys don't, they're former players who have a knowledge base and just getting the right personalities to kind of mesh in a booth, I think is important. And me and Dan and me and Jason, we both see eye to eye on some things and not on everything, which I think makes it more fun.
And to your earlier point, like if you're going to make it to the playoffs, you might as well get to the World Series. And if you're going to get to the World Series, you might as well win it all. I think we can all be on board with that. And we're going to have you and Jason Benetti covering the entire regular season. You talk about working with him. You guys have such a great chemistry. Why do you think it works well between the two of you? Because I can tell you, Tigers fans just love it. They love when Jason Benetti and Andy Dirks are in the booth together.
Yeah, I think we don't take ourselves so seriously. We take baseball very seriously. And, what we do on air is exactly how we are off air. We joke around, we have a good time. And Jason knows baseball very well, which I respect, and so does Dan. Like these guys know baseball at a high level. And I think with Jason, a couple things that make us click. Probably the first thing that comes to mind is he understands the flow and pace of baseball. And not everybody does. He understands when there's moments coming up, leverage situations, like what's that thing that's going to potentially dictate the outcome of the game. And he also gives space for a color analyst to provide the analysis. And on TV, it's a little different than radio. Radio, you have to call every pitch, right? So like every pitch has to get called, slider down and away, ball one. So there's a little less runway for a color analyst, where on the TV, there's a lot more runway for a color analyst. And one thing I didn't realize till later is how much I actually knew about baseball. Because when you're in the world, man, like there's a lot of guys that know a ton about the game, right? But when you start taking like the things that you have learned, and I'm a unique case, I think, because I played in so many levels, and it wasn't like quick to the big leagues. It was like a progression of I had to learn things, so many things along the way, and I pick up this little tidbit here, this little one here. I tried this, it didn't work for me, and that kind of formulates my analyst game too. Of there's just so many things that I had to do right. And I had to have a basic understanding of the game that exceeded maybe some other players to be able to not just make it to the big leagues, but to stick. And that's why Jim Leland liked me, because he knew like what he was going to get when he rolled me out on the field. Like I was a smart player. I ran the base as well, could play defense, could handle the bat, knew the situations. And that's what I take into the color side. But what I really focus on is how do we get this across to people who maybe don't have as much experience in baseball? And I'm simple enough in my mind, I was educated in college some, but I'm simple enough, dude, that I can pretty much just say the simplest form of this concept idea is probably this.
So, I mean, it obviously took a ton of hard work and preparation, like you said, to get to the big leagues. How much preparation does it take for doing a broadcast for a game or a series, or do you really lean on all your experiences as a player and just kind of go with the flow?
I think you need to lean on your experience as a player to a degree, but there's also the prep work. Probably a lot of times the best prep work is like Evan knows so much about Tigers baseball. It's ridiculous, right? So people like Evan, and then you think there's other cities and other people have writers, they have scouts, they have broadcasters. Like a lot of times I'm picking as much knowledge up from those people as possible, because they're as intimate with the team as anybody. And then, you go into all your resources, all your StatCasts, all your different analysis with numbers, where Jason has the stats and Dan Dickerson both like worked out. Like it's very rare that I can find something that they haven't already found. Sometimes I come to the yard, I'm like, oh dude, they're not going to see what I found. I figured out that against left-handed sinkers, this guy is 1 for his last 22. I got this. And I'll like present it feeling all high and mighty. And they're like, yeah, we talked about that last meeting, Andy. And I'm like, oh yeah. Anyway, check please. Right. So when it comes to the stats, like these guys are on top of the game, but how do those stats then translate into what reality is? Every day is different at a ballpark. What's the pitcher really feeling like today? I don't care what a guy's done. Maybe in the last week is a better indication than what he did 3 months ago, right? Against certain pitch types and whatever. So those are the conversations we have to prep. Like, how relevant is the information? I hate bringing non-relevant information into a discussion. I don't think, just because you have a point to talk about doesn't mean it should be talked about. Jason is very, very good in the perspective of he's got so much to bring to the table that we don't have to force things into a broadcast. It's not like, here's A, B, and C. Here's the 3 topics that we're going to hit today because Framber's pitching and we know he's going to get ground balls. Therefore, we must talk about how his sinker, how much depth and run it has compared to other guys' sinkers. We don't have to talk about that. Maybe we'll talk about something different depending on the flow of the game. And that's something that I think with Jason, he's quick on his feet. He can see the game unfolding and we can move in different directions quickly. Going back to your question that you asked an hour ago that I'm just now answering.
No, it's a special connection, no doubt, between the two of you. Let's get into the upcoming season for the Tigers and where else to start than the offseason additions. And if we're going to talk about the offseason additions, we have to start with your old teammate, Justin Verlander. What do you remember about playing with Justin Verlander? What was your reaction to him returning to the Tigers? And what do you think he'll be able to provide this team both on and off the field? It was fascinating to me hearing him talk about growing up as a person after becoming a father. And part of that is becoming a better teammate. So we're going to see what that looks like. What do you think about JV coming back to Detroit?
I think it's great. Obviously, the city, everybody's on fire right now for Tigers baseball. This is the best teams we've had in a long time. And then to add a historic piece, I will call him historic, piece back into the flux of the championship teams to get JV back. You saw it on social media. As soon as they signed the guy, everything was blowing up. Everybody's excited to see Verlander. Playing behind Verlander was always a joy. Between the pitching staff, when you have great pitching, like as a defensive player, which I was pretty strong defensively, it makes your life way easier because they're going to go in, they're going to attack, they're going to work through tough spots, they're never going to give up. And some days it was pretty boring playing behind JV because he would strike out everybody. And then he'd give up fly balls. So that was a little bit, in left field, I'd get a little action sometimes, but he was always a competitor. One thing I know, and this is what I've come to realize, and it seems simple, but I think it's true. The best pitchers in the league, when they have a subpar outing for their standards, say they, JV would give up 5 runs, which back in the day would have been like, oh my gosh, it's the worst thing that could ever happen. The next team that faced him, I was always like, oh, I feel bad for these guys, because he would, without question, would come out and absolutely run through that lineup like he was the granddaddy and they were the grandchildren and just mow them down in a fashion that was unreasonable. And part of that's adjustments. And part of that's too, just that never conceding to mediocrity that the greats have. They got talent. There's a difference between, a lot of guys have talent, but these guys not only have superior talent, they have that mindset of like, I'm going to keep getting better. It's like the Tarek Skubal that we've been seeing, it's like, how do you get better off of the 2024 season? Well, you turn around and do a little bit better in every category in 2025 and win another Cy Young. He brings that attitude and also his veteran leadership. I know he was a little hard on himself, I think, as a teammate. I always thought Justin was a good teammate as far as he was serious. He wanted to win. So sometimes when guys want to win, maybe they're not the most friendly at times when you think of like happy-go-lucky. That's not JV. He's not just like, he's a funny guy. He's fun to be around. But when it's time for business, like it's time for business. It's like time to focus up and get after it. Probably the one thing that we'd give him trash on was, it's like, yeah, you want to do that on your start day, but on the next day, you're always like chilling, man. It's easy to play once every fifth day.
He described himself as a horse with blinders on back then. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah. That dude on his start days, man, you didn't even make eye contact. My kids like this game. It's called Minecraft. And there's these little guys that go around called Endermen. If you make eye contact, they'll attack you. JV was the Enderman of the team back then. Like, it's almost like you're like, oh, did I just look at him? My bad. Like, I'm going to go over to my locker. And out of respect, the starting pitcher is the one that dictates the tempo of the game. So whatever gets the guys going, you learn this as a position player early on, whatever it takes to get those pitchers sorted out in their capacity between the ears, let them do it. Like, I don't care what they do, as long as that's what it takes to get them in a position to dominate the game and the tempo of the game, I'm good with it. So if you don't want to be looked at or talked to, I'm cool with that. We don't take it personally as teammates. And then you got a guy like Scooble who's on the other end of it, right? He's a little more like, just want to have a normal day.
And now you have Justin Verlander in the year 2026. He is 43 years old. He's been doing this for 20 seasons, and he's going to be a veteran leader in that clubhouse. How much do you think players can actually learn from each other? And for example, how much can guys like Tarek Skubal, Casey Mize, Jack Flaherty learn from someone like Justin Verlander? And what exactly do you expect them to learn from him throughout the season?
I think you can learn a ton from other players. Like, that's a huge resource. So as a ball player, you're constantly taking information in. You want to make sure whatever information you're taking in is from reliable sources possible and people who have your best interest at heart, right? Like a good veteran, they want to see the guys around them succeed and get better. Like, no questions asked there. And then it's a matter of experience. And we a lot of times we can learn. There's two ways to learn. One's from our own experience, from failure, and the other is from other people's experience. And sometimes we get in these weird spots where it's like, I can't quite overcome this challenge. Maybe a guy's losing his command a little bit, right? Well, Verlander's been there. He's a Hall of Famer. So it's like, okay, here's a Hall of Famer who has at one point in his career had, I had command issues here. I did this. And these are the few things that I thought about. And this is kind of how I got back on track. And maybe that guy can try it and maybe it works for him, right? Like, those are the things that when a guy is at that level and he's proven so many times that he's capable, he also knows that baseball is a very fragile game and it can turn on you in a heartbeat and be very difficult no matter how good you are, right? So I think a lot of times for younger players and guys who are making their waves, it's kind of encouraging to know that, like, here's a guy who's done everything a guy can do in the game of baseball and has had struggles too. This isn't a phenomenon just for the poor people like me. It's also for the guys like Verlander, right? Because he's learned to overcome those challenges. And how did he do it? A lot of different ways. And he can elaborate to those guys. And if they have questions or, how would you attack these specific types of hitters? Verlander's faced every type of hitter that exists in baseball. I mean, you remember when he faced Ted Williams in 1943, 44, whatever season that was. He faced Ted Williams and he struck him out twice. Like, how do you get Teddy out? Like, Verlander knows.
It's funny. It's funny hearing you describe him as an Enderman, because just this morning, my son asked me to go get him a full set of diamond armor while he was at school.
Yeah.
Which I can't do.
It's big in my house right now.
Yeah. So Verlander is one of the big additions, but there were also a bunch of other big additions in the pitching staff. You got Finnegan coming back. You brought in Kenley Jansen, who's probably going to be a Hall of Famer, and then Framber Valdez, of course. What do you think about those additions overall? And also kind of along with that, the lack of an addition of a big bat?
Solidifying pitching was super important. We saw what happened last year in the second half of the season when the injuries started piling up. When Reese Olson went down last year, it was kind of like, now what? We went from having 5 starters to having like 2, right? 3 starters. And you're trying to mix and match. You can never have too much pitching. I think every good team is always continuing to add to the pitching piece. We just had enough vacancy that it had to be a huge priority. Because you see these names getting brought in, and it's like, yes, those are very, very good acquisitions, because we know throughout the course of the season, some guys are going to do well at certain points. Some guys might be on the shelf for a little bit. Like, nothing's perfect in the game of baseball. But to add, the back of the bullpen is always an issue. You have to have the back of a bullpen. And now we have 3 guys back there between Finnegan, Best, and Jansen. Like, we have 3 elite guys. Those guys, I think, Evan, you mentioned at one point, I read something that they each had 20 saves last year or something like that. It was the first time that 3 of I picked that up from Evan. See, I'm learning stuff all the time from Evan. And I've used that others and I didn't quote you, so I feel bad now. But to have the back end of a bullpen that's locked down is super important. Also to have a rotation that is manageable. So when you talk about being able to eat up enough innings throughout the course of a year, look at a guy like Framber. I mean, this is a guy who's going to come out and he's going to eat up innings very productively. That's what we're looking, I hope JV can do. You don't have to have a sub-3 ERA and all this stuff to be very effective. You need to get through the innings, and we need to have enough depth in that rotation and in that bullpen to eat up as many innings as possible. And I think the Tigers put themselves in a position to do that. Now, not adding a bat, I think, is a strategic move. One, it's like what bats are available. You always got to start there. Like, who really fits the mold? I think Bregman came back on, but he didn't want to come to Detroit once. Like, why is he going to come to Detroit now? I think that was kind of the thought there. And then also, when you add a bat, it would have probably been a right-handed bat, right? Third baseman, something along those lines, DH. You're going to take at bats away from other guys. So at what point do you want to take at bats away from Vierling, from Colt Keith, from McKinstry? Like, who are you going to take at bats away from to give to this other person? And how much more production are you going to get out of that person with the amount of money you have to spend? Or can we spend a little more and get Framber? Combine that and get a really quality starter as opposed to maybe a mid-level starter and a bat that's mid-level. So you're going to get the big bat or the big starter.
And then you get the big starter, you keep the door open for somebody like Kevin McGonigle, the hottest name in spring training right now, 21-year-old shortstop, the consensus number 2 prospect in baseball. He's looked great with the bat. He's looked good with the glove, surprisingly good with the glove. And his emotions are very mature in his first MLB camp. To me, he looks ready for the big leagues right now. But what do you know about Kevin McGonigle, and how much do you look forward to his future with the Tigers whenever he arrives?
Yeah, this is really the start that I've been able to see him. Like, I didn't watch a lot of his games last year. You know, they were playing in between. I saw highlights, and it's easy to see highlight reels and be like, whoa, this guy's amazing, right? But I want to see him interact day in and day out through camp. Let's get through camp and see exactly kind of how push comes to shove and who's doing what towards the end of camp. He's a very good hitter. I think his adjustment to big league pitching isn't going to take as long as some guys just based on his swing mechanics and his speed of his hands. He's very stable in the box. He's got great balance. His head doesn't move a lot. He doesn't have a lot of negative movement in his swing. It's kind of a straightforward approach. And then it's just, can you handle the velo day in and day out? You know, at this level, I think is the going to be the only thing. Like, if he gets off the fastball a little bit, which right now he's raking. So, you know, when you see a guy that's kind of on everything, it's like, what's he do when he's not on everything? Like, what kind of, because that's going to happen. I don't care. Unless you're Miggy in 2012, like, there's going to be a time in your career where you're off of stuff. What's his adjustments? What's that stretch look like for him against more elite pitching? And some of that's just getting reps and taking time. Defensively, I mean, he's made some plays. I haven't seen him get stretched to a degree that's just super unreasonable in any spot quite yet. And so, I mean, he's a top tier player, no doubt. But are they going to put him on the roster out of opening day? Man, I don't know. I know we have some question marks at third base. Like, that's probably a spot, you know, between. But if Colt Keith can hit and Vierling's hitting and they're playing good third base, it's like, why rush something that you don't need to rush? Is Hobby going to hit like he did at the beginning of last year? Like, there's enough variables that they're going to continue to try to put the best team on the field they can. And is that through Kevin McGonigle? It might be. Like, these things have to play out a little bit.
Do you think it's necessary these days for a player to hit AAA? I know that you kind of went the traditional path from AA to AAA. I think your draft mate, Alex Avila, went straight from AA. Do you think everyone should taste AAA at least first, or do you think he has the chance to do it?
There's no requirement. I don't think there's a requirement. I think the issue always comes down to reps. You got to get at bats. The only way you get better, because really what stacking at bats does is it helps you make adjustments when you're not feeling good. He's got a swing. And he's got a knowledge of hitting that when he's hot, he's going to hit. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like, the dude can put the barrel of the bat on the ball. It's more, you stack those at bats to figure out when I'm not feeling as good, when my hands are feeling slow, when this guy's throwing me these pitches or they start dotting certain, like, how do I get through those times? Because you got to feel a little struggle at some point. And for some guys, their first struggles in the big leagues. And is that fair? Yeah, I don't know. What's fair? I struggled everywhere I went. I had to figure it out at every level. So it's like, there's different mentalities and different types, but he's definitely talented and he's going to be an impact player. Like, I would imagine some point this year, because throughout the course of the season, somebody gets hurt, somebody needs a blow, somebody's not performing. Like, it's baseball. We know that those things happen. Now, in a perfect world, Verlander hits 320 and has got a 850 OPS and plays third base every day. And it's like, then, you don't need to bring him. But then maybe Hobby's not playing as good. So there's always room for players that play well. All Kevin McGonigle has to do is keep doing what he's doing and playing good baseball, and he'll be in the big leagues.
Andy Dirks said he struggled. I say he hit 322 across 88 games in 2012. Another big name player on offense is Riley Greene. We've talked to him a lot this spring about how he can take that next step from an all-star player to a superstar player. And he's talking about trying to be more focused on the situation of the game when he's at the plate. He said this, for example, you got one out, runner on second base. Do you try to hit the big home run, or do you take your base hit and drive in the run? Last year, Riley Greene was trying to hit the big home run. This year, Riley Greene wants to take his base hit to drive in the run. How big of a development is this going to be for him? And what could this do for his career if he follows through on building his at-bat to at-bat approach around the situation of the game rather than just trying to hit a home run every time?
It will take him to the next level for sure. Like every good RBI guy, if you're a middle of the order guy on a legit team, sometimes you have to take your hit. Like if you're going to hit 3, you have to be all around, like on a legit team, right? You got to have power. You got to be able to hit in certain spots, in certain situations, understand what pitcher you're facing. If there's a runner at second and there's one out and Riley Greene's up and I'm a pitcher, like I'm not feeding him fastballs middle in or anything to try to get him to turn on. Like I'm going to give him changeups away. I'm going to dot him away. I'm going to do whatever I can to keep him off balance and try to get him to chase some stuff. If he makes adjustments, then what he does is he takes his base hit to left field. You saw him hit a scud missile to left the other day. Like he can hit to all fields. Riley's never had an issue. He's got popped to all fields too. And I think some of that's just trusting yourself in those situations that you don't have to be a superhero. And actually, you not being a superhero in every spot will lead to better success for not only you and your team as well. Contact. Riley's an anomaly the last couple of years with the amount of strikeouts, but the production. There's not many guys that have kept that pace up over the course of a long career, right? Usually it never happens. Like nobody keeps that kind of pace up to where it's like massive power, fairly good average, good OPS, decent OPS, but strikes out as much as he does. And I think he recognizes that. And what he'll probably end up doing is trying to cut down on some of the strikeouts. 2-strike approach will maybe look a little different, especially in those spots with runners in scoring position. But I hope, and this is what I hope he doesn't change too much. Because I've seen guys, like quality players are quality players, and Riley Greene's one of them. Like his power in that lineup is crucial for the Tigers offense. Him being able to hit the long ball is big. That's one of the big differentiators between this team and the team 2 years ago. This team now has power, and it's got power threats. And I would err on the side of stay how you are, maybe make a few micro adjustments as we're going. Instead of like, let's just completely change my approach with a runner in scoring position. Because now it starts getting in your head and you're starting to think like, oh, there's a runner in scoring position. It's a big deal. I got to change something. No, these are those minor little adjustments you make throughout a season. And I hope, and he's talented enough. I think he understands the assignment. Like he can get on top of the ball and put some balls in play. What's crazy is when he touches it, dude, it just goes. Like he's got an unreal amount of pop. And I think if he trusts that a little bit, like his ground balls get through the hole. Like he just hits it, and unless it's at a guy, like that thing's coming off the bat pretty hot. So his exit velos is really good. So I think he can trust that a little bit more with his contact.
What else are you looking at from this offense? Because there's a lot of different storylines. We touched on Colt Keith looking like he'd be the everyday third baseman. Gleyber Torres is back. You got Matt Vierling and Parker Meadows hopefully fully healthy. Zach McKinstry coming off an all-star season. Dylan Dingler as a Gold Glover, and Torkelson and Carpenter with the power. I mean, what else are you zeroing in on this year?
Just quality at bats. Now is where these guys just got to continue the reps. That's where progress comes. When this offense clicks, it's like any offense. You got 9 guys in the lineup who are taking quality at bats. They have a plan. They go out and execute their plan, whatever that looks like that day, and then adjust from there. Where this offense can kind of get sideways, like any offense, is when you forget the plan, when you start just kind of going through the motions and you start just swinging, as opposed to having a purpose with what you're trying to do, going deeper into accounts against certain guys. Like they were so good in the first half of last year. Based on the starting pitcher, we could almost predict what that day was going to look like, that first round of at bats. Like, were they going to be patient? Were they going to come out swinging? Like, what was this going to look like? And to just not make easy outs. Like, that's the problem in Major League Baseball. If you give pitchers easy outs where, first pitch, sinker down and away, and a guy nubs one to second base, a left-handed hitter. You're like, what was your approach? He's got a sinker. What were you trying to execute there? Were you trying to hit a homer to the pull side? If so, that's not the pitch, right? Like, kind of refining those across the board will keep this offense consistent. And I love the walks. Like a guy like Kerry Carpenter kind of starting to take a few more walks second half of last season. Like those type of adjustments that we're seeing now, that we saw a little bit towards the end of last year, if they can continue on those, that's going to keep guys in positive positions. And you have a lineup where it doesn't have to be the same guy every night. There's a lot of good sticks in the lineup. So it's like, if you take your walk, that's great. That's a win. You don't have to hit the 3-run homer every day. So maturity along the lines of day in and day out at bats. It's tough to be consistent in baseball, man, but that's their next step. Like they've shown they can do the things that are needed. It's just, how do they remain consistent?
Before we get you out of here, we want to kind of go back to your playing days a little bit. And I want to go back before the Tigers, sort of, in January 2024, you were inducted into the Kansas Baseball Hall of Fame alongside former Twins and Tigers manager Ron Gaudenhair. You're born in Kansas, played high school baseball in Kansas, went to college in Kansas. Where does that Hall of Fame induction kind of rank among your career accomplishments?
It was cool. It's cool to be recognized in your home state of Kansas. Looking back, it's funny to see like where it all started for me. Just small town, kid playing a little bit of baseball on dirt infields. Like my high school had a dirt infield. We didn't have grass infield. There was no like hit tracks. There was no, we didn't even I never took batting practice on the field until I went to college. I didn't know what a turtle was. Like, so all of these things that like, as my progression went, I think helped me to a degree because I had some talent. I'm an athletic guy, I was strong. I could run, I could throw, but I never knew what I didn't know, which was good. So like, as I went up levels, like I never really understood how everything worked. Even in the minor leagues, like I just played baseball and my focus was so intent on just becoming a better baseball player. I was very fortunate when I went to the junior college I went to. I had a guy named Kyle Crooks, Sean Edmondson. These coaches were pivotal in teaching me the game. They taught me how to play small ball, which I know is not trendy, but it will teach you the fundamentals of the game and how to think inside the game, situationally, what's going on, how do you advance runners? Like I learned it there. And then at Wichita State, they ran it more like a pro ball squad where you better be on your own game. Like we're not here to hold your hand. If you strike out, we're not making you run to the fence and back. You're just not going to play. So it was more of that, like, you're going to have to figure this thing out and get it going. Very pivotal. All my time in Kansas was great. I would never drop a ball in Lakeland because I'm from Kansas, because the wind in Lakeland is brutal, as you guys are very well aware of. But the wind never bugged me because in Kansas, that sucker would blow 50 mile an hour from right to left, from foul pole to foul pole. And that ball would go up in there and it would start in center and it would end up in left field. So I never misjudged a fly ball because of the wind. And part of that's because I'm from Kansas. So there's advantages to being from small town Kansas. We didn't have all the scouts in the stands, but man, that wind would blow.
Well, one of the scouts may have been there. The Tigers took you in 2008 and 8th round out of Kansas State. And the VP of scouting at the time was David Chad.
That's
who
right.
Also was a big Wichita State shocker. It has been known for drafting players from Kansas and Oklahoma and stuff like that. Did you know him at all before you were drafted? Was he around the team?
But I knew Brent Chemnitz, who's good friends. Brent Chemnitz is the all-time winningest pitching coach in Division I history. Probably still is at Wichita State. Great guy, amazing baseball mind, has developed a ton of pitching talent. Mike Pelfrey was, he's a Wichita State guy. There's Dryford. There's been a lot of Nate Robertson, lefty with the Tigers, Wichita State guy. Not to brag, but we were pretty outstanding. But when you look at it, Brent Chemnitz knew David Chad very well. So David Chad, would trust Brent Chemnitz's philosophy. So we were at Florida State playing in a super regional. And I think it was the second day, first day of the draft. Connor Gillespie, who was our third baseman, went supplemental first to the Giants. And Kenny Williams Jr. went to the White Sox. Kenny Williams' son, third round. And I was like, I didn't know what to expect in the draft at all. I had a really good year. I played hard. I hit well. I did everything a guy could do, but I was a senior. I didn't get drafted my junior year. So I was a senior. So, you have no leverage. And then the story goes, David Chad talked to Brent Chemnitz and was like, hey, what do you think about Dirks? Because I was on the radar. I was on a lot of teams' radar, but they're trying to figure out like how high should we draft this guy and where are other teams going to kind of let him fall to? Because there was multiple teams that wanted me. It was just a matter of how soon was somebody willing to take me? Was somebody going to go 15th round, 10th round, 5th round? Like, where is he going to fall? So that was kind of the game that everybody's playing, I think. And Brent Chemnitz asked David Chad, I don't know, where would you draft Lenny Dykstra? And that was my comparable that he gave me. So then the Tigers drafted me in the 8th round and started the career from there, man. It was exciting. I think I got $22,000. I was fired up, dude. You know how much money $22,000 was? Dude, my student loans were $18,000. And my parents like, you're paying those things off, buddy. I'm like, I only got $4,000. That's still more money than I've ever seen. I'll take it.
That's awesome, man. So you go to Wichita State, then you become a Detroit Tiger, and you were on some very good Tigers teams with some great moments. Is there anything that stands out to you about your years with the Tigers that fans might not immediately think about, or maybe things that fans might not even know about?
Probably resilience, the resiliency of that squad, because everybody knew we had talent. But I think what people don't understand is like behind the closed doors of how hard it is to be consistent day in and day out, even for the best in the world. Like playing with Miggy, Victor, Prince, Peralta, like just keep filling in blanks. Austin Jackson, like guys who are very, very good at baseball. But the emotional day-to-day strain and the emotional like gumption it takes to go out and perform every single day, it piles and it piles and it piles. And even the best in the world at times, like when they feel like they're struggling, like they have to suck it up. And I think a lot of people think like a guy like Miggy could just roll out of the yard and just crush. But he was trying at a level that was unreasonable. Like he wanted to do good very badly for the fans, for the city, for Mr. I. Like I think sometimes from the outside in, it's like these guys get all this money and they don't even care. You know, they're just going out and playing. On the teams I was on, that was never an issue. Every dude in that clubhouse cared. And they cared a lot, and they wanted to win, and they wanted to, produce for the city, for the team, for the ownership. We wanted so bad to win one for Mr. I. And unfortunately, that didn't work out, but it wasn't for a lack of effort or intent or trying. They're all humans, like in a clubhouse. These are human beings, man. They put their pants on 2 legs at a time like everybody else.
I love that. All right, Andy Dirks, that is all we have for you. Thank you so much for joining the Days of Roar podcast. So much great insight. And man, oh man, we look forward to seeing you down here soon in Lakeland, Florida. And I know Tigers fans can't wait to hear you on the broadcast again. I have a feeling it's going to be a special 2026 season.
I'm fired up. Thanks for having me, guys. Keep it up with the podcast. You do great work.
Everyone, that was Andy Dirks, former Tigers player and current Tigers broadcaster. We have more to discuss this week as spring training rolls on. But first, let's take a break. We're back and we have some more injury news to talk about. At the top of the show, we discussed Troy Melton, some negative injury news, but how about some positive injury news? Jackson Jobe, former Tigers top prospect, he expects to pitch meaningful innings for the Tigers in the 2026 season in return from Tommy John surgery. We've kind of already known this because the Tigers mentioned that they had this expectation at the winter meetings in December, but now we've also heard it from Jackson Jobe. He's further along in his throwing program. It sounds like he continues to check all the boxes that he needs to check. Those are all good signs. He underwent Tommy John surgery in June 2025. He should begin throwing off a mound, get this, in 6 weeks. And then he would do live batting practice, and then he would start a rehab assignment. Now, there are a lot of steps he had to jump through to get to that point, but maybe we will see Jackson Jobe at some point in August. Maybe mid-August to late August is when we could see Jackson Jobe. That sounds about right to me. I still have a lot of concerns with the healthy version of Jackson Jobe. Like, he just doesn't miss enough bats. He gives up way too many hits off his fastball. And like, for those reasons, I worry that down the road, he may become a high leverage reliever. But for now, and probably for a long time into the future, the Tigers are going to keep trying him as a starter. And he really could be a key addition, whether it is as a starter or as a reliever in August or September, especially if Troy Melton is sidelined. Jackson Jobe, do you think that the return of this former top prospect could benefit the Tigers down the stretch? Or do you view him as more of depth once he comes back? Or do you think once he's healthy, he's going to make an immediate impact on this team, even if it's coming out of the bullpen?
I don't know about an impact, but I do think he can help the team down the stretch. And it's interesting you talk about, and we've talked about it before, you know, the fastball quality and things like that. But it wouldn't shock me. I mean, this is an opportunity to kind of retool. And he's done this before. He had a back injury in 2023, and people were worried he was going to be out all year, and he missed, I think, about 2 months, and he came back better than he was the year before, much better.
And that's exactly what Tarek Skubal did too. Remember when Tarek Skubal had his flexor tendon surgery and he learned a whole new way to throw his changeup, and now look how devastating his changeup is. And he did all of that through the rehab process. So if there is an opportunity for Jackson Jobe to have some time for development, the time is right now.
Yeah, and I don't want to, I'm not making any promises, right? And you made a good point. Like you could have a timetable to come back in August, but one setback and that's it, right? Like a little sore, you don't like it. But as I said, he had this somewhat serious injury before and beat the timetable on that. So he might just be a quick healer. And whenever you're coming back from Tommy John surgery, you worry a little bit about a guy's command. But if he comes back, I would assume it's probably going to be in kind of a bullpen role. And if he's just out, like if they're healthy or if they're happy with him kind of letting it eat, he could just go air it out. And we've seen him touch triple digits before, and he can really spin the ball. So he could be just kind of a fun, you think to the Dodgers last year, Roki Sasaki was terrible to start the year. And by the end of the year, he's pitching meaningful innings out of the bullpen in the World Series. So I'm not, again, wishful thinking at a number of different fronts here, but it's possible because he has that level of arm.
Last thing to discuss before we get out of here, it's something new, and it's called Detroit SportsNet. It's the new broadcast home for the Detroit Tigers and the Detroit Red Wings. This was announced Monday by Illich Sports and Entertainment. Detroit SportsNet, it's powered by Major League Baseball, but it's the home for all locally televised Tigers games beginning in the 2026 season and Red Wings games beginning in the 2026-27 season. Both Tigers and Red Wings games will be available through year-round in-market streaming, while a television channel is expected to be offered in cable and satellite packages throughout Michigan. We're still waiting on more information there, but you'll be able to get it on TV and you'll be able to stream it. It's called Detroit SportsNet. The cost, $19.99 per month or $189.99 per year. Those subscription opportunities are now live. So we're looking at $20 a month or $190 per year. You can go online. You can find out more. No Pistons, though. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that or if you have any thoughts on Detroit SportsNet as a whole, or if you're just happy that this whole fiasco is at least sorted out for maybe one more year. I mean, it sounds like this is a long-term play for Illich Sports and Entertainment, powered by Major League Baseball. So basically, for those who don't know how this works, what you're going to have to do is if you are wanting to watch Tigers games and you want to stream it and you're not going through your cable provider or satellite, what you're going to do is you're going to go to the MLB app, and you can get that on your phone. You can go right on your computer, MLB.tv. You can get the MLB app on a bunch of different smart TVs. And that app is incredible. That app is a one-of-a-kind app. And I think for everybody who complained about the old app, let's just call it, I think you're going to love the MLB app when you're watching Tigers games. And then when it comes to the Wings games, we don't know where those games are going to be watched when it comes from a streaming standpoint. Again, this is aside from cable. This is aside from satellite. This is just streaming in general. Where are Wings games going to be? That's going to be on a to be determined app, but that won't start until the 2026-27 season. So there's some time to sort that out. Do you like what Illich Sports and Entertainment is doing, or are you just kind of tired of all the nonsense?
Well, I mean, so far I'm happy. We saw a broadcast the other day, and it wasn't festooned with gambling ads, which is a nice change. But yeah, I mean, I think I'm just happy that fans are going to be able to watch games, right? Like there's always a concern when you have to wonder what channel it's on, or, this cable provider doesn't have this channel and stuff like that. So get a way to watch it. I'm sure it'll be a learning curve for some people. And I think at some point that the Pistons will probably get on there somehow. They'll work it out, right? If you've got the infrastructure there already. And I think what I read was that basically they're going to have pregame and postgame shows in the games. But when they're not doing that, it's just going to be kind of off air. And my suggestion is maybe play some local podcasts when you're not broadcasting games, right? They're not expensive.
A little Days of Roar wouldn't hurt nobody, except I don't know that it's company friendly to those at Illich Sports and Entertainment, but
I think it's worth a shot. They could cut parts out, whatever.
Maybe. All right, it's time for us to get out of here. Thanks to Chris Brown from Tigers Minor League Report for co-hosting with me again this week. Thanks to everyone for listening to the latest episode of Days of Roar. Chris Illich, if you want to put us on your TV, let's talk about it. Please like, rate, share, and subscribe. Give us a rating. Comment what you think about the show. Stick with threep.com/sports for the latest Tigers coverage. I'd like to thank the editor of the Free Press, Nicole Avery Nichols, and our magical producer, Robin Chan. For the Detroit Free Press, I'm Evan Petzold. We'll catch you next week. Until then, go in peace.